Welcome back. Energy issues have an impact on a host of other discussions in Texas, from the economy to the environment and workplace safety. Joining me this morning are two reporters very well versed on energy issues. Hughes from the Texas Energy Report and Moze Buchele from KUT News. Thank you for joining us so early on a Sunday morning. Let's kick it off here. Start talking about the current energy boom in Texas. How does this compare to past booms? Polly, if you want to start.
Well, the past booms that I covered were 30 years ago, so it's really very different than that. That was back in the 1980s. And those booms were really driven largely by price. This boom, in my opinion, is driven largely by technology. Price obviously matters too, but it's the technology that is really creating the boom, because it's making it possible to get oil and gas out of the ground that a lot of people thought was going to stay trapped forever.
And you're nodding your head yes when she said the word technology.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, we hear a lot about hydraulic fracturing, fracking, and horizontal drilling, and these are the two things that have kind of unlocked these reserves that Polly's referring to.
You mentioned fracking. There's been a lot of debate about whether or not the benefits are worth the risks to water supplies and the environment. Is there any hard evidence either way on that?
That is still, I think, an open question. It's still being studied. The Environmental Protection Agency is doing a 2-year study on that. The University of Texas had a study as well, and what they found was that the risk is largely with the wastewater. If some of the water comes back up after you frack, and if you don't handle that properly and it leaks onto the ground, that can create some contamination problems. So there's a lot of attention to that.
And then here in Texas, in the midst of this ongoing drought that we have, there are also a lot of concerns about just the amount of water that's used in hydraulic fracturing. It takes a lot of water to do it, and we don't have a lot of water in the state.
Earlier we heard from Breitling Energy Companies, also the Sierra Club. They disagreed on one point, which is whether we're in the midst of a boom or a bubble. Which one would either of you say is correct?
I think it's a boom, and I think it's going to continue for quite some time. And I'm basing that on the idea that down in the Eagle Ford, they're saying that they think the production is going to continue for 20 to 30 years. And I don't see that stopping anytime soon. And so I think it's going to be a sustained production coming out of that area. But I guess it depends on how you would define what a bubble is.
Right. I think that, first of all, there's still discussion about what our reserves are, in the United States and in Texas. And so people do have that debate. But a lot of this also comes down to pricing, right? I mean, as long as it makes sense, as long as you can make $1 using this process to get the reserves out, then it will probably be done. But if something shakes up in the price of oil or in the economy that makes that not economically feasible, that could be another thing that could come into play.
Polly, what are the odds that a lot of this regulation we're hearing about, the limitations lawmakers are considering, will actually become law?
Well, I think the big bets are going to be on what happens with the Railroad Commission. It's under review to stay alive for 10 more years. And as part of that review, there's some reforms suggested to basically regulate the regulators. And right now they get a lot of their campaign funds from the industry, 80 to 90%. And then they're regulating that very industry. So the bills to extend the life of the agency would set some new limits on that. That's opposed largely by the commissioners themselves and the industry.
But Moze, do you think that the name change, you mentioned the Railroad Commission, is going to really make a difference?
I think it would make a huge difference. I think a lot of people who don't follow this stuff as closely as we do are understandably very confused by the fact that this agency is called the Railroad Commission. It now has nothing to do with railroads at all.
Yeah, this was news to me as well. I don't follow it as closely as you guys.
And this is something that's been tried in the past, and in the end, they didn't get the name change the last time they tried. As Polly said, this year we have 2 bills, one in the House, one in the Senate. The Senate bill includes the name change. The House bill now, I think, has been amended to not include the name change, and so we need to kind of wait and see how that shakes out. But certainly, in the course of my work, I run into the confusion all the time. People don't understand it.
Yeah. And then the long discussion ensues.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. In the past few sessions, we've seen talk about incentives for renewable energies like solar and wind projects, but not so much this year. What do you think is leading to that?
There's been talk of a national push in the states, some legislation that would set limits on incentives for renewables. I think there is a bill like that here in Texas. Kind of remains to be seen whether that will actually pass. But you know, Texas has kind of been a leader in wind energy in particular. So I know that there are a lot of people that would want the incentives to continue.
Mm-hmm. Anything you want to add on that, or we can move on? I've got one more question for you. Changing directions to another infrastructure debate this week. The proposal to create a water infrastructure bank failing in the House due to a point of order. Any chance that bank could have become a reality?
So we have several different bills that would fund the water plan and these water projects you're talking about. The Senate already passed out SGR 1, which would actually put this process to a vote across the state. The House bill did fail. There's a chance it could, possibly be revived, or there's a chance we could see this come up in special session over the summer. So it's still something that a lot of people want to see get done.
Got it. Polly and Moze, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Some great insight into an issue that a lot of people may not even follow or very much understand. So we appreciate it. All right.